A dramatic new shift in India's reservation policy has been upheld by the Supreme Court. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our deep dive today is on the quotas that have been upheld as constitutional by the Supreme Court when it comes to the economically weaker section. Remember, this was a constitutional amendment moved by the Modi government in 2019. In fact, most opposition parties, except a handful, had supported the constitutional amendment at the time. The BJP and the Congress both initially welcomed the Supreme Court decision, and then the Congress remains conflicted somewhat and has ordered an internal review. The debate is still wide open. Is this the upending of social justice principles, or is this a fairer policy that in fact offers affirmative action for economically weaker sections in the non-SC/ST categories? It has been a furious debate and it could open a Pandora's box because remember now, there is no cap technically on a 50% reservation ceiling. You already have states like Jharkhand, for example, that have a 77% quota policy. That is our focus on the program today. It's a complex subject. We hope to unpack some of that complexity. And even if we disagree, we hope, as always, that that disagreement will remain lively but civil. Let's introduce our panel of experts today. Joining us is one of India's foremost legal minds, Dr. Mohan Gopal. He's been scathing in his criticism of the Supreme Court judgment. We'll find out why in a moment from now. Joining us from the BJP is its senior leader and spokesperson, Rajiv Pandey. Good to see you, Mr. Pandey. Namaskar. Joining us also is author columnist Gurcharan Das. Mr. Das tends to take a perspective that is critical of all quotas in perpetuity. We'll find out why in a moment. And also joining us from the Congress party is Dr. Uday Raj, who of course is also a well-known Dalit leader. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. And I will, of course, start with you, Dr. Gopal, because you compared this verdict to ADM Jabalpur, one of the most infamous, notorious responses from the Supreme Court during the emergency years. I want to ask you why, because those in favor of this constitutional amendment, and again, I remind our audience that when the Modi government moved this as a constitutional amendment, most opposition parties, except a handful, did support the legislation. The argument would be that it's not disturbing the existing reservation policy for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. It's not disturbing or upending any existing quota policy or affirmative action. Why then, Mohan Gopal, are you so critical of this verdict?
Thank you for that question, and I'm glad to be on this program. Yes, while arguing this matter before the Supreme Court, I did compare this matter to the ADM Jabalpur case for the following reason, that it posed an existential threat to some of the fundamental values of the basic structure of the Constitution. And if the Supreme Court got it wrong and emerged on the wrong side of history, then someday it would have to be reversed. And then when I made it, it was an argument. But today I have the Chief Justice of India and Justice Ravindra Bhat unanimously signing a judgment which says that the economically weaker sections reservation amendment violates the basic structure of the Constitution and destroys the social fabric of the basic principle or basic structure feature of equality. So it's no longer an argument that I made. It's a finding on the judicial side by the Chief Justice of India, joined by one of the most respected judges of the country, most thoughtful and most experienced judge in constitutional law.
Though theirs was, of course, not the majority judgment; it was the minority judgment.
I did not say. I said. There were. It's not a question of majority minority. I'm saying that the Chief Justice of India found that the economic, after careful consideration and careful hearing, found that the amendment violates the basic structure of the Constitution and destroys the social fabric of equality. That's a very serious matter. Whether he was in a minority or a majority is certainly very important for deciding the legal effect of the judgment. But that's why it's worth comparing to ADM Jabalpur, which was 4-1. This was one better. It's 3-2. But I have no doubt that at one point of time, this will be reversed, and it will always be seen by 80% of the country as a betrayal of one of the most fundamental principles of constitution, which should not be kept at the larger level of social justice, but at the very specific point of the right of representation of all classes in the judiciary and the executive of this country, which was written into the constitution by Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar. And so that is what has been destroyed. The reservation as a tool for representation. We are not struggling for reservation. We are struggling to preserve the right of all classes to have adequate representation in the Indian state.
Can I ask you something? You of course feel this is a betrayal of constitutional principles, and I'm just explaining this for the purpose of the audience. The panel already knows this, that the economically weaker sections will of course be drawn from what's called the general category. In other words, sort of oppressed communities or historically oppressed communities have been excluded from this additional quota. Dr. Gopal, my question before I open this up is this. Had this not excluded those who already draw benefits of affirmative action, would you have felt differently? Because one of the judges did reference that. He said that maybe there could be an economic cap or an economic filter applied to the already existing quotas.
Sure. I will answer that, but let me just make a brief initial point that the question is, who are the economic weaker sections and for whom this reservation is made? The statement of objects and reasons presented by the government to Parliament for this amendment says that it is based on it is implementing Article 46 of the Constitution. What does Article 46 of the Constitution say? I'll just read its very short, brief provision for your audience. It says, the state shall promote with special care the educational and economic interests of the weaker sections of the people, and in particular of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation. So it's very clear that we are talking of protecting the educational economic interests of weaker sections of the people, in particular scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and exploitation, which means they're victims of social injustice and exploitation. Now, the government has excluded scheduled castes and scheduled tribes from this reservation implemented pursuant to Article 46.
Okay.
So this whole amendment is full of duplicity. Suppose they wanted to give it to, let's be very straight, they wanted to give it to the poorer sections amongst the socially and educationally forward classes, because they're not socially and educationally backward classes. Why did they not write that into 16.6? That this reservation is for economically weaker sections of socially and educationally forward classes. Why did they have to sort of have this convoluted other than the classes referred to in 15.4 and 66?
Got
so
it.
There's a lot of duplicity here. The economically weaker sections are victims of social injustice and exploitation, referred to in 46, not others. Not others, number one. And number two, they must include scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. To answer your very specific question, I'd like to say that Ambedkar was the one who said we need a right to equality. He said 50%, ideally 50% limit should not be crossed. Ambedkar was the one who said it. We have the right to equality in 14, 15, and 16 because the oppressed classes fought for it. There has never been a constitution with a right to equality before this constitution. I want to say reservation is a tool to achieve representation. It's only a tool. We can have a more effective tool. So therefore, by delinking reservation from representation, regardless of who benefits, a huge damage has been done because reservation is dangerous. Reservation should be contained. Reservation should be only for representation. This judgment has let loose reservation among
may I now jump in? This is a very interesting last point, that actually you're saying that instead of containing and limiting reservation as a way of social and economic upliftment, this is representation. I beg your pardon. This will in fact expand the scope of reservation, and we already have states like Jharkhand, for example, where, as I mentioned in my opening, Rajiv ji, let me bring you in, has a 77% sort of quota policy. Rajiv ji, the very specific point from Dr. Mohan Gopal is this. that this is the policy designed for, in effect, forward castes. This is the policy defined and applicable for the poor among what may be known as the upper castes, in quotes, because we must, of course, lose this concept of upper and sort of lower in our classic hierarchy. Rajiv, why does not just the BJP, but so many political parties supported this legislation? Today, you're seeing a ferocious debate. What would you say?
Barkhaji, first of all, I do not like this word upper caste, Savarna, forward. You know, Baba Sahib Ambedkar has defined 4 sections. One is scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, now it is OBC, and general caste. So this is economically for the economically weaker section from general class. So this Savarna and all these things are just for the people who are trying to divide Hindus on the basis of caste. They are trying to destroy Hinduism. That's why they are using this. So let's not go in that debate. Mr. Mohan Gopal, as I am a practicing lawyer of the Supreme Court of India, let me first respond him as a lawyer. He said, even Chief Justice is supporting my case. But as far as our constitution is concerned or Supreme Court is concerned, even Chief Justice is having the equal power and equal weightage when he is sitting in 3-judge bench or 5-judge bench or 7-judge bench or even full bench. So that question doesn't arise. Right now, the point of view of Justice Ravindra Bhat and Justice U. Lalit is not accepted by 3-judge bench, by three honorable judges from the same bench. So whatever is given by these 3, which is a majority judgment, that will prevail. Now the issue is, time and again, Gopalji has said it is for representation. That is absolutely correct. But when Mandal Commission came, then it was for social justice. That these people should be given social justice. And then whatever Baba Sahib Ambedkar said, that was little bit changed. Why it was changed, I'll tell you the reason. Because, you know, things are changing. 75 years, when Baba Sahib Ambedkar made constitution, that time, there was no reservation was put for other backward castes. But later on, it was brought because of the Mandal Commission report that there is a less representation or there is issues. Now what has happened in the changed circumstances, the parliament, which with absolute majority, except 2 parties, one is RJD and DMK, everybody supported, yes, there is injustice to the people who are economically weak, having less advantageous position from the general class. So that becomes a class within a class. Many people argued that what is the data and all. For this, you don't require data because the data is available who are the below poverty line and what is the number of the below poverty line people.
But can I ask you something?
1 second, can I just conclude? Barkhaji, just I'm concluding.
Sure,
what I'm trying to say, this is another class. And in my opinion, today Parliament as well as the Constitutional Court of this country both have concurrently supported the action taken, affirmative action. I'm saying this is an affirmative action taken by Narendra Modi government. And I am saying, if suppose somebody is questioning that that whether this has crossed 50% or barrier or not, I think I will also read once again that this judgment, whether this is overthrowing earlier judgment of the 9-judge bench judgment or not, because these 10% from the general caste, it is coming. So whether it is crossing 50% or not, that I will have to also apply my mind. And in another sub case, even Supreme Court will apply its mind.
Can I ask you briefly before going to Gurcharan and Dr. Udit Rajiv ji, what about this Pandora's box? You know, Dr. Gopal made one argument that I was really struck by, that if reservation is to be not apply all sort of category, right? That it should be a very specific and not an ever-expanding principle for representation. Then what do you do with states like Jharkhand, Tamil Nadu, where there's an ever-increasing quota policy and ever-increasing, now 50% cap is gone with this judgment, as you know.
Barkhaji, I will say that these matters will again come to before Honorable Supreme Court of India. And this matter will be also settled. In my opinion, this 10% EWS quota does not breach. But I cannot say because from the people from general caste will get, and everybody, even the people from other backward caste who is earning more than 8 lakhs are also falling part into that. So in my opinion, it is not going to change. This matter again, whether it is Jharkhand matter, I think in the Madras matter or Tamil Nadu matter is already pending before Honorable Supreme Court of India. So this issue will be again agitated, and maybe Mr. Gopal will again address the court and try to get this matter also settled. That's my view.
Okay. Okay. All right. So two completely differing perspectives, and I have a feeling we're going to hear yet more differing perspectives. So, Gurcharan, let me bring you right in. This is a hot potato. It's been a hot potato, the debate around quotas, a political hot potato, ever since I've been a journalist. When I was a college student, that's when Mandal Commission was in fact first announced. And at that time, there were many people who marched against that, but eventually it came to be accepted widely across political parties, right? Now you have another layer, and Dr. Gopal is arguing it upends the very principle of social justice that's enshrined in the Constitution. The Supreme Court, in a majority judgment, despite dissent by two judges, including then Chief Justice UU Lalit, has held otherwise. Your take, sir?
Well, as you've introduced me, Barkha, as a person who's against all quotas, that is correct. I think I'm in favor of affirmative action, but there are far better ways to do affirmative action than quotas. Most countries have recognized that, and they don't have quotas. And yes, we have to help the people who are disadvantaged in our society, but we can't destroy our institutions in the process. So 75 years after independence, frankly, it is very unfortunate that we have breached the 50%. At least that was something, that 50% for our institutions was left for merit, pure merit, and for excellence. And while it's as I said, that
You're suggesting that anyone who comes in through a quota is not excellent, which
yeah,
there
no,
is no empirical evidence to
yeah,
actually
I
make that
agree
point.
absolutely that it's treating unequals equally and equals unequally, and therefore it just goes fundamentally against human ideals of justice, and that's what our constitution was based on. Now the exception was made. Mr. Ambedkar rightly argued that time that the Dalits were deprived. And I must say, I confess that the quota for Dalits has helped. I have met very many who have risen, and it has been as a result of this. But now it's 75 years later. And frankly, scholarships, direct benefit transfers, the country has the resources to do a lot for education and healthcare, to give opportunities to the poor.
So, what do you
Now,
make of this economic criteria that has been brought in, not as a filter, but as an additional layer?
yeah, I think that's wrong. If you want to do something, you've got the direct benefit transfer route to do it. And we are doing it for everything else. So there is a way. What I'm saying is you are destroying institutions when you compromise on the on the conditions of entry.
Okay.
And so what this is, I know what I'm talking, Barkha, is not going to happen politically. It is something we are in a culture of quotas and freebies. But I hope that people, like more and more people, will understand that our institutions are very fragile. And if you start, this compromises institutional integrity.
Okay, let me pick up the last of your points. Why not direct cash transfers, direct cash benefits for the poor? Why add another layer of quotas? Dr. Udit Raj, you represent the Congress. The Congress has been quite confused. The Congress voted for this constitutional amendment in Parliament. Despite criticizing the timing, it initially welcomed the Supreme Court decision, and now, because of internal churn, it has decided to review its response. Dr. Udit Raj, do respond with your specific concern, since it's not disturbing the existing sort of quotas for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Why are you apprehensive after the Supreme Court verdict? Can we unmute? Dr. Udit Raj, you're on mute, I think, at your end. Can you unmute? Yes.
See, Barkha
Yes.
ji, ever since Indira Sahani judgment, many matters went before Supreme Court. Many matters even I brought before the Supreme Court. In all judgments, maybe R.K. Sabrawal, Nagaraj, many landmark judgments. In all judgments, it has been reiterated by Supreme Court that the limit or the cap of 50% cannot be
But not in this
lifted.
judgment. This judgment has
Listen,
decided otherwise.
listen.
Yeah.
Then for 30 years, many cases, matters from Tamil Nadu and other states came. Why, when it came to give reservation to the upper caste, and suddenly Indira Sahni judgment judgment said that 50% cannot exceed, that ceiling has been broken. One. And second, what surprises me is that the larger bench judgment can't be altered by smaller judgment bench. It's a smaller bench.
Right.
That has never happened in 75 years. And thirdly, now since 50% limit is gone, then it's my personal view. If you ask from the Congress official position, that is may differ,
Yeah.
but it's my personal view, Vakhaji, is that on what basis estimation of 10% has been arrived as far as the population is concerned. And see, the poverty line,
Yeah.
as per prevailing current situation, a person who's having income of 1200 per month is above poverty line. And considering 5 people in a family, and then you compute it, and per
Yeah.
year it becomes 72,000 per family income of the year.
Let me jump in here. You are not agreeing with the estimation. You are not agreeing with the criteria, and you are saying, why did a 5-judge bench overturn what has been accepted widely in the annals of case law? Now, before I go back to Dr. Mohan Gopal, I want to bring in Rajiv or Rajiv Ji of the BJP.
Why have you given me less time than others?
No, not at all. You raised a very specific point. I wanted a response to that, but I'll come back to you in a second. I just want Rajiv Ji to briefly respond to what you've said. And because you raised the point of how this is being categorized, and Rajiv Pandey, I want your reaction to this so we can come out of these graphics. The criteria that the center has told the government is 8 lakh rupees family income should be the cap. Now, I'll get Udit Ji to respond to what you said, but this could mean millions of Indians. Is this viable? And to Gurcharan's point, why not have an additional cash benefit program instead of a quota? And then I'll come back to you, Dr. Udit Raj. I just want a brief reaction from Rajiv to your point.
This 8 lakhs is for the creamy layer also in the OBC, and that's why this amount ceiling has been kept. And what Guru Charanji is saying, that is another point of the affirmative action. But in India, reservation will exist till we have caste-based discrimination. As a spokesperson of Bharatiya Janata Party, I will say, till this caste-based discrimination is there, reservation will be there. My party has taken this call and a lot of discussion. Till we remove that caste-based discrimination, till now it has gone down. Untouchability has gone down. The intercaste marriages are taking place. So till we achieve the equality and the caste-based discrimination, this reservation will continue. What Gurcharan Singh Ji Das Ji has said, Gurcharan Das Ji has said, that may be another affirmative action. I do not oppose that. Okay. And if you see that this has happened, even in many people are getting out of...
Yeah, let me just bring in Dr. Udit Raj briefly because we're on limited time and I want to go back to the others also. Dr. Udit Raj, please complete your point. You raised 2 points. Indira Sahni judgment, the 50% ceiling has been upended. Why a small bench? And what is the economic criteria for deciding who's really poor? what should happen next? The Supreme Court heard 40 petitions before reaching this verdict. Ab aage kya hona chahiye? What should happen next, Dr. Udit Raj?
See, I'm very amused to listen the argument of BJP spokesperson says that untouchability is gone. Times of India survey itself says that
Didn't say it is gone. It has gone down.
Listen.
It has gone down, sir.
Okay, let him speak. He said it's gone down, Dr. Udit Raj.
Yeah. 80% children in midday meal, they are suffering from untouchability. They eat separately. You think that the untouchability is gone? Secondly, you cannot compare creamy layer of OBC with this, because in OBC quota there is a social and economic both. Here it is purely on the basis of economy. So both the cases are not comparable. It's a separate.
Okay.
And third, why only 27% for OBC? When on what basis? On the basis of census 1931, and then on what basis it has been worked that the population of 10% of upper caste is poor.
Okay.
What statistics? Where from they got the data?
So now, of course, there are new demands for a caste census that are going to come in the aftermath of this, which have already been there. Now, Dr. Gopal, here's the question. Gurcharan raises the idea of cash benefit transfers in lieu of quotas, adding a layer of quotas. My question is this. Would you have supported an economic filter or a cap within the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes? Because one of the common criticisms of those who criticize the quota policy is that maybe it should be generational. Maybe after a Dalit family is, better placed economically, it should be sort of phased out. Would you have supported an economic cap within, as opposed to additional and excluding this caste community?
Yeah, I think we have a fundamental misunderstanding about what the nature is of backward class and SC/ST reservation. If you go to the National Commission of Backward Classes website and look at the criteria for being backward class, you'll find that while caste and any communities can be a backward class is not a caste. It has 15 or 20 criteria, which are social, economic, educational, and political, and primarily focused on exclusion and lack of representation. So we have, and I've actually given in my written submissions a list of these communities. There are Brahmin communities that are in the backward classes. There are Vaishya communities in the backward classes. There are Kshatriya community, Shudra community. There are Muslims. There are Christians. The Supreme Court, in a judgment, asked that the transgender should be included in the backward classes. And we all celebrated that. The National Commission of Backward Classes has proposed that often should be included in the backward classes. Any group that is marginalized, excluded, and does not have representation. That's what Dr. Ambedkar intended, should be represented. Now, every industrial country in the world believes in representation of all sections of the people, giving voice to all sections of the people. When one of the 9 judges of the Supreme Court of the United States announced his voluntary retirement, there was a consensus in the country that position should be replaced only by an African-American woman. Yes. Everyone agreed. Why? Because they had already an African-American male. They had 3 women.
I understand that it comes down to the...
No, let me finish. The point is, it's all about representation. Now, so backward class reservation is the real economic reservation for the economically marginalized, applying only social, economic, educational, and political exclusion criteria. This EWS is actually not EWS. It excludes the SC and ST. It includes what Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani in the argument called, it is for the lower middle class, what the very learned and honorable lawyer representing the BJP calls, it's for the general caste. I don't know why now suddenly we've introduced one more caste, but this is the first caste-based reservation in the country. So we should recognize that we have introduced caste-based reservation.
I apologize for interrupting you, but because
I'll just say one sentence, which is, if there are genuinely poor amongst upper castes, so-called, or general castes, they have already been accommodated in the OBC category. There is no reason why they should
Okay.
not apply and be included in the OBC category.
May I,
This category was created only to create a representation-free zone in public employment and education,
yeah.
and there will be 10% of education and 10% of public employment where there will be no diversity and will be purely
I have to jump in. I'm really sorry. I have just literally 2 minutes left. I'm going to take concluding remarks. Rajiv ji, Gurcharan, and then Udit Raj. Rajiv ji, go ahead. You heard what Dr. Gopal said. Your last comments, please. Unmute yourself, sir. You're on mute, sir. Please. Yes.
My comment is that this quota is now upheld by the Honorable Supreme Court of India. A reservation, as the Honorable Court has also said, that you can revisit everything. As far as the SC/ST reservation is concerned, that is part of the Constitution. Thereafter, OBC reservation came 30 years back. This reservation, if what Gopalji is saying, if suppose tomorrow in some other matter it goes before the court, as you are saying that several states are doing, that will be discussed and debated. We are a constitutional democracy. Everything has to be debated, and what is good for the country should be applied. But right now, I can say the policy of Modi ji is supported by the parliament as well as by the constitution bench. Thank you. I have another show, Barkha ji.
Okay, Rajiv.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, I understand. We're running late. Thank you, Rajiv ji. Pleasure to have you on. Gurcharan, your last thoughts. Gurcharan. Yes. Gurcharan.
And I've expressed before
Yeah.
that the right way to go in this area is to create equality of opportunity. Now, that's easier said than done also. I recognize that. But we have come a long way from 1947. And we really need to create an environment in our country, just as we need to create an environment against this monster of freebies that exists in our political discourse. We need to start creating this for reservations. Quotas is wrong. And we have a good new education policy. We have a lot of private institutions that have come up. Give scholarships generously to students so that from the beginning, now with new foundational learning pressure, from the age 3, that's the age in which you give an opportunity to anyone. I would say let's focus on that. Give generously scholarships to people and let them go to the best schools in the country.
I really do have to close, Dr. Udit Raj.
Anyway,
my question, sorry.
I made my point.
Yeah, Udit ji, your last comment. You said it's your personal opinion. Your party seems quite confused. Where do you think this debate goes from here, sir?
See, what happened, I am partly representing the party view as well. But let me tell you that the meritocracy in this country, who will decide? Are the Supreme Court, High Court judges appointed on the basis of merit? Is there any interview for them? Is there a written test for them? Is there any reservation in media or in newsroom? And then why these institutions are doing worse than bureaucracy? And there has been one study by Aswani Deshpande, that impact of reservation. That report has, that's only research done in the country and more by American professor, that the reservation has increased the productivity and efficiency. And when people argue about that merit means is not only criming, it's a sincerity and mental honesty, also intellectual honesty. There are many components of merit, not only criming. The father, then tutor, then good school.
I think the debate remains wide open. I think what we could agree on is that it cannot be an ever expanding way of representation. That is something I think we all agree on with all our differences. But we'll have to leave it there. The last word on this has clearly not been spoken. I think of review petitions coming up before the Supreme Court, Dr. Udit Raj as well as to Raj. It is a complex subject. We did try our best. There's a lot more to be said, and hopefully we'll have follow-up programs. Dr. Kupal, you trying to get a sentence in? I really do have to end. Yeah, please, very
small
briefly.
correction. That
Yes.
16.4 in 1915, the original constitution provided for reservation of backward classes. And so that's a fact. So the idea that it was introduced later is not correct, historically correct.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for watching. See you tomorrow, same time.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.